Ready?
Yes.
Okay. So what do we do about this? Well, one idea is you simply go back to the world the way it was in the 1990s. That you can't in practice you can't publish yourself, although you could with desktop publishing, and you have to have a third party approve of your being published, just like it used to be, although that's not completely true. Well, when would you be published then? When what you had to say could sell. So that means, for example, I published my books. They don't sell particularly well anymore, and I get pestered about it. But you only are allowed to speak if people want to hear you, is what that says. Now, that's very bad, and there is the issue that independent speakers like me and like a number of other people that have YouTube channels and that operate alone or operate as very small companies offer a check on established media. Particularly recently, for example, with the Covington kids in January, that incident where was grossly misinterpreted, and that one teenager's smile was greatly misinterpreted by the media the first time. It was only independent journalists who figured out what was really going on. You know, that case is being litigated now. If you didn't have independent media, you wouldn't have check on abuse by the regular media, and you wouldn't also have check on government. On the other hand, we didn't really have it before, and we got along. So, and it's also true, there's an argument that the internet is a public forum and that you can't really regulate a public forum. That's an argument that Lear Lesser has made, and that's also that argument appears in the COPA opinion back in 2007. But nevertheless, what you could do in Europe, you go back and think about Article 13, there's no way that these platforms and these hosting companies can possibly filter everything to make sure nothing that violates copyright ever gets put up. There's no way they can do that. What they could do is screen the people that are allowed to speak, and that could start with only established companies. Well, we want to have independent media. So how do you have independent media in that kind of environment? Well, you have to have some way to vet people first. Now, that sounds a little bit like maybe a social credit score, which is what China is already doing. Well, what could influence somebody's trustworthiness? Maybe you want to see them volunteer first. Maybe you want to see them maybe you want to see them pay their dues first in some way. Maybe you want them to have dependents. Maybe you want them to have their skin in the game somehow. That's Nicholas Taleb's idea. That would give nonprofits an awful lot of power over because people would have to earn their credibility by volunteering or something. So that would not be a good thing. One of the things that is really disturbing to me is, it's true, the nonprofits today want to see people who are disadvantaged get a fairer shake in life. The only way they do that is if people are willing to not simply volunteer to serve, provide service to them, but also sometimes advocate for them. We've seen a situation where Facebook, for example, has been asking people bluntly in the media to run donation campaigns for nonprofits right in the middle of their Facebook streams. Well, that means that your own speech is no longer independent. It's conditioned. It could mean that you're only allowed to speak if you do fundraising for an organization first. That seems to corrupt your own speech. So this is a very disturbing idea. Nevertheless, you could imagine, for example, a world where no internet content is free anymore, and you have companies that set up subscription bundles so that you can subscribe to 15 or 20 news sites, and then maybe some independent sites could be introduced to you, but independent journalists would have to be approved to join these bundles first. But you could set that up and you could have it work that way. There would be a lot more published content than there had been before the 90s, because it's a lot cheaper to publish digital content than it is to publish books and movies. But there still would be restriction on who was willing to be heard as an individual, unless they were willing to work through an organization or volunteer or take on some responsibility for other people or something first. You could try to do that. Now, China tries to do that now. Do we want to go in the direction of China? But it sounds like we're headed right down that path to me. This is all very disturbing. And I don't really have a clean answer for it, but I wanted to put these out. Now, a lot of people think this is heresy from somebody that's done what I've done for 20 years to say these things. But we have a real problem. And there is a lot of opposition to free speech as a kind of power that people haven't earned the right to have, and influence, and that it ought to be mediated by service or something. There is a lot of thought like that going on right now. It's a little bit Marxist. It's a little bit, I guess it is sort of neo-Marxist or something. But that's what's going on right now, and so we have to deal with it. I'm 75 years old. I'm planning to make some changes. I want to keep my own sites up until the end of 2021, the way they are, if nothing happens. But I've got to face this myself somehow in my own operation, as I've announced recently. So that's what we need to be thinking about right now.